Get me in food.
I can't cope. Oh my god.
I know it's stupid, but it's funny.
There's just something not right about that. But you know what it has completely inspired me to do? And I want all of our viewers to know on Friday, when we come back for our head out the weekend, we're going to switch our faces, David.
Not live like this.
No, I don't think we can do it live, but I will definitely.
I think you have to be in the same room for that.
Do you? We're going to figure it out. That's going to be our mission.
Both of you. You can't just like send it over the internet.
It's going to be our mission. It's going to be our mission to do it. You know, when we have a Zoom class, I have this background that's David's face and it's huge behind my head. So maybe that would work. Maybe I can get Snapchat to switch our faces on that.
You can try. I don't know.
I don't know.
What's going on?
We have a good day planned.
We had a really good class today, actually. We learned a lot about the technology that we have at our fingertips that we weren't even using a fraction of it. It's kind of like our brains. You know, you use only 10%. Only now I can say that we're probably using a good 75, 80% of it now. There's still a few things out there that I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But I mean, the ability to get the word out on certain things is great. So I'm very excited. It was good. Well done today, except for my crappy internet. You know, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, but it was great. We, just for those who were not here, we did a market your listing in a digital world. Just, you know, the more we think about it, of course, David and I are on all kinds of webinars and listening to panels and, you know, what's coming down the pike. But I think really what we're kind of realizing in terms of this shift and what this time frame has given us a kind of a jumpstart on is the fact that, you know, our listings need to be really maximized in their digital marketing so that
visible. You know.
Yeah, so that people, you know, I mean, I don't think, you know, hopefully we will be out of our houses, but we're still going to be social distancing for a long time. And I think it could even be a culture shift where, you know, we start acting a little bit different. And I think that people are going to be looking at properties a lot more online and wanting more than just, you know, those 10 pictures that may or may not really look like the house. And so we wanted to really show our agents how to get out the pictures as well as the virtual tours, as well as some live video, and so that we can really maximize our listings to the public.
Well, it is interesting that after I'm up on 21 years, my God. It's still amazing. You can still learn new things. And I learned today that, you know, with some of the technology that not only is it just the pictures, it's the order that the pictures are in. I've said for years, though, I mean, you can always tell when somebody gets their new drone because they've got 15 shots of the outside of the home. And you hit it on the head. I'm pointing out, you're over here, wherever you are. You're over here somewhere. The reality is that when you don't have interior shots almost immediately, you hit it on the head. People think there's something wrong with the inside and like, skip this one. And that's why a lot of these houses just sit on the market for so long. And then they go into like foreclosure or short sale, which, you know, then you got to call this guy, Don Gervais. And then John, hi, I'm Don, you're on screen. Don and Jan, they are our foreclosure and short sale specialists. We do have, you know, we work with them for quite some time. And Don was here. You were here at the beginning of the week. Was it Monday?
I think it was last Wednesday.
Oh, last Wednesday. So yeah, you're like doing a twofer here. Don Gervais and Jan, who we work with for short sales and foreclosures. How are you, Don and Jan?
Doing great.
Yeah.
David, just real quick, your voice is very low and Dana's is loud. I don't know if there's a problem with your mic or if it's just
Is that
us.
better? Is that better?
Much better.
I have a new microphone, so I can't really tell. I can't really hear it where I am right now. So thank you for that. Is that hopefully y'all can hear me better? Well,
much
cool.
better.
Well, cool. Dana and I, of course, have worked with you before. But for those who are not familiar with a short sale or a foreclosure, we're going to talk about both. But let's start off with short sales. Now, for those of you that don't know what a short sale is, that is when and see if I can pare this down. That is when a seller has a home to sell, and they owe more than the home is actually currently worth in the market, and they need to sell the property no matter what, for whether financial reasons, divorce, whatever, and they have to petition the bank to sell the property at the market value and be short on the difference. Hence the term short sale. They're short what they owe. But if it's done properly with an attorney, you can not only do that, but also get the benefit of not having to pay back that money in many cases. I haven't done one in a while, so perhaps it's different from them. But tell us a little bit more about that process, Don, and I'm sure Jana will jump in with some questions.
All right. Well, you nailed it. I mean, it's basically getting the bank to agree to accept less than the total balance owed in order to sell the property. And in most cases, especially when we're dealing with a person's primary residence or their homestead, the bank in most cases has forgiven they call it a deficiency, but the difference between the short payoff and the actual outstanding balance. So oftentimes the lender will just forgive the balance of the debt, and the seller walks away not owing any money, even though they're not satisfying the entire loan. Downside to that is any debt forgiveness by the lender is viewed as taxable income in the eyes of the loving and caring IRS. So although there were things in place for many years during the mortgage crisis where that wasn't taxable income, those provisions have expired, and unless reinstated, it is a taxable event. But there are ways to mitigate that, which I think is too long a discussion for here, but oftentimes you can get around that because of insolvency and other reasons.
What do you think when you do the short sales? What's the biggest obstacle to overcome in a short sale, in your opinion?
Well, the biggest obstacles, and Jan, I'll get your opinion on this too, but has to do with second lien holders, mortgage insurance, or third-party liens, whether they be mechanics or HOA liens, that bring the number of people who have to approve the short sale and or receive funds from the short sale, make it an added layer of difficulty in getting the approval.
Yeah, we've gone through that quite a bit. I mean, it's one thing. I had one here in my neighborhood with this elderly couple. Citibank just really screwed up their loan, and they ended up going into foreclosure / short sale. And we went through a period of probably 7 or 8 months where the first loan would get approved with a 30-day approval timeline. Then the second would take forever. And then like maybe 5 days before the approval was up, they'd say, okay, we'll approve it. Well, you have to, in that timeline, it's so tight sometimes you have to get both companies to approve it, and you have to be able to get the loan processed and closed in that timeline, or else it's back to square one in many cases. And that's what gives you, me, lack of hair. I mean, it's very stressful, and that's why I think it's so incredibly important to have someone that knows what they're doing do that. And it's also the reason why a lot of people won't go after short sales as buyers, because they don't understand the process. And once they get into it, they see all these other houses that they could be buying slipping right through their fingers because they're waiting for an agent who thinks they know what they're doing on a short sale to do it. And I equate it to this. I don't belong doing a short sale. It's a banking transaction. It's a legal transaction. I don't belong doing that any more than I belong cutting your hair or, doing surgery on you. It's not in my wheelhouse. It's not what we're trained for. But so many agents think that it's their job, and it's absolutely just the opposite.
And David, I want to piggyback right on that and just kind of give a little more clarity about what you mean when we say that we aren't experts at short sales. We are experts at real estate. A short sale inherently involves a real estate transaction, but it is much more than your typical real estate transaction. So I just, really want to clarify for the agents out there as well as the public how, we as realtors work with Don and Jan as negotiators on behalf of the seller, how that all works together with the real estate transaction. And so, what happens is that there's a necessity for someone to sell their property where they're not going to be able to clear all the funds necessary to pay off their mortgage or any additional liens and that type of thing. And so typically they'll come to us as realtors, and that's great. That's what we want them to do. But what our company decided a long time ago, before we did hundreds of these back in 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, is that we are not experts at dealing with the mortgage holders. We are not mortgage experts. We are certainly not short sale experts. And we were very fortunate enough to partner with Don and Jan, who are experts in that area. They came to it from the mortgage side, but then have become even better at it by being in the legal field and being able to not only assist with the short sale, but in some cases, the seller may even want to a separate thing of defending against the foreclosure. So we work in tandem, and because we work so closely and so well together, it's seamless. And Dawn comes into our office regularly to give classes to our agents. And while we really hope that short sales, don't become a big thing, I think that we have to be realistic that there may be, some situations, at least in the short term, where individual pockets of people just find themselves in a position where they can't keep the house, or it makes completely no sense to do it. And David, I've shared with everyone, my husband and I found ourselves in that very same place back in the crash. And so
you're not alone. I had one too. I have one on an investment home. I had purchased a home for 185. My dad and I fixed it up, and we were like probably 225 into it and couldn't rent it. The renters were jerking us around, and then the whole market fell apart. That home ended up selling for $70,000.
Wow.
And I had to pay $5,000 to get out of the short sale. But I couldn't. It made no sense, to continue paying that much money per month for something that I was never going to recoup. It's throwing bad money after good money. So, it's not something I'm proud of. I mean, there were people at the time that were really obnoxiously proud. That's my house. That's my money. I'm like, they would take out the appliances. They would strip the house clean, and they were angry at the bank for someone giving them money that probably shouldn't have given them money, because if you had a heartbeat or a pulse, or you could breathe, you were getting a loan. And that's what a majority of us now I think we're going to start seeing completely different scenarios where people are really struggling. They're already struggling now. Imagine if we don't get, Disney and the hotel is back up and running, people are going to be struggling to make their mortgage payments. And that's where we're going to start to see these short sales happen, because the market was up until this point, I think prices were pretty high up there.
Yeah. I want to ask Dawn and just, give out to our audience that, you and I understood just, from a principal standpoint, but also just from a personal standpoint, how important doing the short sale was versus letting our homes go into foreclosure. And so I just wanted, Dawn to just briefly touch on why that, if you're not going to be able to get, completely out from under the mortgage, that the short sale is really the best thing for you in the future.
Well, it most definitely is. One, if we can successfully negotiate a short sale, or a seller can, as I stated before, more often than not, you're relieved of any future responsibility and you can walk away. And although your credit is damaged because a short sale is still reported as a foreclosure alternative and it does damage your credit, you can recover from that a little more quickly. And lenders, because of the nature of the crash and the housing problems, have put in overlays to their lending guidelines that are less strict or have a less of a time penalty to lend again to someone who's had a short sale than an actual foreclosure, which is the nuclear option to a credit. And not only that, almost always when there's a foreclosure involved, the lenders seek a deficiency judgment. So not only do you lose your home to foreclosure, it's oftentimes sold for less than it would in a short sale, which means the deficiency, the gap between what is paid to the bank and the outstanding balance, is greater in a foreclosure, which means if you're stuck with a deficiency judgment, you owe more than you otherwise would in a short sale. And oftentimes those things can be settled, but far more favorably in a short sale scenario.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like a dirty word. That short sale is a dirty word, but I tell people you're better off doing the short sale. You have a little bit more control over the situation than the foreclosure. I mean, the foreclosure is going to stick with you longer, like you said. I think the short sale, last I checked, it was 4 years before you could buy a house again. Is it less than that now?
3 with FHA, I believe.
Yeah, and some lenders have even gone down to 2, where it's almost always 4 years with a foreclosure.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the
in cases of a foreclosure. I've even heard that it was that much for certain loans, that it was even longer.
Yeah, it can be. Lenders have different guidelines. Yes.
So how long has it been taking you guys to successfully do on average a short sale? Because I think people don't understand the process of how that works, and I know it's a lengthy process, but see if you can get it down to like 3 minutes.
You want to take this one?
On average, if it's just one loan, one mortgage, I would say it can easily be 45 days. If there's a second involved, I would easily add an extra month on that because of what you've heard already of us synchronizing the timing of it. Second lenders typically will not even review their side for an approval until we have the first lender approval, and that's where that huge, kind of turn time comes into play. But we at the office, we try and streamline that, knowing when and where and how to submit things, so that way we can lessen that gap to have everything close on time.
So it's really, I mean, it's a combination of things. It's the first phase is if you're smart, when you're doing a short sale, you're actually working on the back end of it before you even get the house on the market. I know you guys do a preliminary meeting. You sit down, you go over the process with all of the people, you start collecting. And if you feel it's the right thing, you've got to get bank statements, paycheck stubs, tax returns, all of these things, letters of why you're doing this and that. And then you're waiting for the offer to come in, and hopefully you get an offer that actually will work within the range of what you think it is. People just don't understand that a lot of the weight of this also when it comes from a buyer's point of view, it also relies on the seller providing documentation. A lot of times they're in denial. I know I've heard the conversations. The sellers they don't want to cooperate. Why am I giving you this? Why do I have to give you that again? Because I gave it to you 10 months ago. I'm like, yeah, 10 months ago, it's outdated. And it gets to be to the point where sometimes they just throw their hands up. So I think that's why a lot of them end up failing with realtors, because the realtors don't have they simply don't have the time. That's not their focus. They're not they're not in the office as much because they have to go out and show homes and work with sellers as well. And that sometimes, if at least it used to be, when that bank had their queue of people to call, if you weren't there to answer that phone call, you went down to the bottom of the queue, and you're not going to get that call to the next day. So you have to have somebody there that's dedicated to doing nothing but that type of administrative detail, because it's not meant for a realtor to do.
Well, yeah, it's not. I mean, their job is to sell the home, and we're there to be there for those calls. And I'll tell you, Jan, dogged persistence. I mean, she calls and calls and calls till she gets someone. So they're, we're riding them and making sure that they stick to the
Squeaky wheel.
timelines they tell us.
Well,
Yes,
let's talk a little bit about Go ahead, Dana.
I've often said that I wouldn't want to be on Jan's bad list because she is like a dog with a really juicy bone and never lets down. I mean, and I know Dawn has messaged CEOs on all sorts of social media, and this is why we wouldn't list a short sale without them, because the bottom line is that we can all win. The seller wins, the buyer wins. We get to do what we do for a living, which is sell a home. Jan and Dawn get to negotiate a short sale, which is part of what they do for a living. We all win when it happens. But if you're not letting the experts do what they do best, and for Dawn and Jan, it's really just keeping that communication constant and knowing what are the potential problems that you can see on the horizon, that you can be preemptive again. And really, David was talking about sellers getting frustrated, but I don't, when we were in the thick of short sales, I think we were closing 20% above the average of short sales. And it has all to do with letting professionals do their job and really giving the sellers and the buyers realistic expectations.
That's key.
Yeah, that we've been super, we've always been very vocal about that. So what would you say? Just give us a little idea of what those expectations are for both the seller and the buyer.
Well, the seller is certainly in a better position in terms of not having let me rephrase that. They have the stress of having to get out from under the house that's underwater. I think the main thing we try and do is keep a good communication with the buyer and buyer's agent to manage their expectations, because again, as Jan described, with differing scenarios, we try and get things done and we tell them, look, plan on 90 days. It could take a little bit longer. The lenders, especially the larger ones, the servicers, have streamlined the process, but ultimately there are some lenders out there that still take an inordinate amount of time to get these done. And the buyers have to be patient, knowing that we're doing what we can. And in the thick of it, Dana, you alluded to it, you get moved to the bottom of the stack very quickly if you don't perform. And when there are fewer of them happening, the whole process is happens more quickly. But if they start to happen more and with more frequency, which is a possibility because of what we're going through, the turn times could get a little slower. And we tell the buyers to be patient, and we work with the sellers to let them understand that there's a third party making this decision, and we really need their cooperation to get the documents in timely so that they can keep that moving. Because in addition, David, you talked about the first lien holder, the dates being so close between getting an approval from one and then almost expiring on the other. Don't forget there's a BPO that's going to expire, and there's all sorts of deadlines that come into play that could blow this thing up if we don't have sellers cooperate and get us the documents we need. And we do that. We do that with a lot of counseling, and for the most part, we can get them to cooperate. And if they don't, we let them know it's probably not going to happen. I mean, it really is ultimately their responsibility.
It's been a while since I've done one, thank goodness. But I recall one of the biggest things I would tell sellers: if you're in an HOA, don't stop paying your HOA. Do
Yes.
not stop paying your HOA. These HOAs have gotten almost just mean. I mean, so mean that they add on these fees and they just keep compounding, and they won't budge from them because they know you have you over a barrel. Why should they bother? And they are
and David, we were just working on a short sale actually that the HOA filed for foreclosure. Yeah. The original mortgage had actually, the case had gone away, but the HOA filed for foreclosure. Yeah. And at that point we were having a lot of difficulty with part of the seller part there, which is why ultimately it didn't work out. But there's, to me, you've always got to try a short sale, and I can't say enough about working with these two people and my trust in them getting it done. If there is any way, anyhow, then Jan and Don are going to get it done.
Well, let's touch briefly on foreclosures, because it's on we're supposed to talk about short sales and foreclosures.
Okay. Well, I wanted to let me segue into it with this in terms of just talking about on the buying side of things. We obviously tell buyers, if you are in a time crunch, if you have some very specific time, you have to be out of a lease or that type thing, that a short sale is a risky thing. But if you don't, especially in the market that we've been in recently, where properties have been flying off the shelves, the short sale does represent a really good opportunity for you to, because you're not going to be competing with investors. Investors don't like the precariousness of the short sale. But of course, if you do have a very strict timeline, going for the resale or possibly even the foreclosure, would be better on the buyer side. So, Dawn, if you just want to talk to us about, how you can help buyers look over, foreclosure contracts with banks to help them better understand that. And then also just how you can help sellers through the foreclosure defense.
Well, buyers, if they're buying a foreclosure, the main thing is to spend $150 or $200 to get a title search on the property you're considering buying. There's advance notice of all the sales, do some due diligence. The horror stories that I just hate to hear are people who picked up a property for what they thought was a great price, only to find out there was a superior or other lien that survived the bankruptcy or the foreclosure, and now they are stuck with a huge bill. And some of those are HOA bills, because when a bank takes back a property, they have a safe harbor of 12. The most they're going to have to pay the HOA is 12 months of back dues. But if a third party buys the foreclosure sale, all of the back dues travel, they're attached to the property, and the new owner finds himself owing 2 or 3 years of HOA dues. So it can become a real problem. So you got to do the homework if you're buying a foreclosure. As far as the sellers, the main thing to do is not ignore the fact that your house is in foreclosure. I mean, as soon as you're on the list or there's a complaint filed, they're going to get 17 letters from various attorneys, whatever number it is, because there are people who mine for that, and the house is in foreclosure, and the key is to address it, to find someone, whether it be me or somebody else, to answer the complaint, open up a dialogue with the lender. If we're involved early enough, we can delay the foreclosure for enough time to get a short sale done, and oftentimes work with opposing counsel to let it happen, because they know it's better for their client to have a short sale than a foreclosure. Now, having said that, we've also found that logic and common sense has no place when the lenders are when you're working with these lenders, but sometimes we still make the effort, and we can accomplish a lot just by getting involved early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they do sneak, the banks do sneak some stuff in those foreclosures too, that show up, and it's really scary. I know, Dana, you got a question, and we have a question from Kathy Pushman as well on the screen.
Oh, I was just saying, Kathy had a question. Any info on title theft that you have heard about, Don?
Well, Kathy, if I'm not getting the gist of your question, you can clarify it. But if you're referring to where funds that were earmarked for escrow or to close are being stolen, what's happening is there's a lot of companies out there that are sending out closing instructions. They get wind of, they know of a transaction, and they put together, it's like any other scam, they put together a very official looking email and send it to a potential buyer like it's coming from the title company, telling them, hey, we need you to wire the funds to this account for closing. And title companies, if they do that, those funds are forever gone. And we wire them to essentially a fake entity who takes the funds. Title companies today, to combat that, because it was so prevalent, oftentimes tell the people involved in the transaction that they will send not only an email, but not to respond to any email without a voice confirmation, because it's been so prevalent. So you never want to do anything, transfer funds, wire funds based on an email. You need vocal conversation. And most title companies won't even email wiring instructions anymore to prevent that.
Yeah, what she was talking about is actually on the screen. It's there are scenarios where you can buy a type of insurance, kind of like a LifeLock for your house, where your title, people steal your title information and they take out money on it or similar, and with a property with no mortgage attached to it, and they basically steal your house from underneath you. Have you heard of any of that?
I'm not.
It's a real thing. Yeah. Dana, have you heard about this?
Well, I mean, I have, where they're taking out a mortgage on
they somehow compromise you. They
mortgaged.
Something to do with your deed and your title, and they use that to take out a mortgage on your house, and then they use that money, or a refi on your house, and then the money goes to them, and you're finding all of a sudden you're getting foreclosed on.
Okay, you're stuck. I'm really not familiar with that, but I'll check it out. But that hasn't come across my radar yet.
Yeah, it's
Kathy just said that's what he was talking about. So 2 things. First of all, my dad did have a situation with that. I think that what more people experience fraudulent, like in what I always caution my buyers with, is that there are times when your mortgage is reassigned to a different mortgage company, but you need to make sure that you get confirmation from both your current mortgage company and the new mortgage company, because there are people that will send out a letter and say, hey, your mortgage moved here, send your check here, and are taking your money. So I think the main thing with what Kathy was saying and Dave was saying and I'm saying is, if you are at all questioning at all, get with an attorney to really help review that paperwork with you and let you know if what's happening is above board. And Don is a great guy to do that with. But I did want to piggyback on, Don, what you were saying, which is a big message that needs to go out, and that is about wire fraud. And for any of our agents and our clients watching, that's why we don't give you the wire instructions. That's why we make you, although we know it's a hassle in some cases, but we make you call the title company that you're going to be wiring your money to, because we want to make sure that your money's safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, it's almost half an hour already. We've already been on half an hour.
I know.
It does go fast.
It goes like that. So, but thank you guys so much. And, just for the work that you have done for our company and our agents over the years is just amazing. And I'm so thankful for it.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. And thanks for having us again.
We'll have another topic. Don't worry. We'll see you in a few weeks, probably.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we'll have you back.
Sounds good.
Bye.
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 Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk to Don and Jan. I just want to, before we close out here, just on a personal level, I had something happen to me today. I won't go into too much detail, but I just want to remind you to check on the people, your friends, and the people that you love. There are people that are really struggling right now, and I'm going to leave it at that. Tell the people that you know that you love them, and make sure you're checking in with them, because it's important.
David.
Yes.
I love you.
I love you too. All right, you ready to dance this out, because I have new music. I can't. The Facebook police do not like our music, but this is. I think it's danceable. Hold on. So I got a call from Christy Matthew, and she's like, Dana didn't know how to dance to that other music. She was trying really hard.
Okay, I'm
right,
doing the white ones over bite if I can't. Okay, I'm gonna
right,
go with
well,
the white ones over bite.
We got to get going because the laundry just went off. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay. Oh, don't forget open house tomorrow. Bye.
Houses, woo! What kind of psychedelic?